Pratyaksha Praman or direct sense perception, it is called. We'll see what that is in detail. The second way of acquiring knowledge is called Anuman Praman, or theories based on observation and guessing based on previous observations, and then Shabda Praman. So, Pratyaksha Praman or direct sense perception, as the name suggests, is whatever we can, the knowledge that we gain through our knowledge acquiring senses. So, what are our knowledge acquiring senses? The five senses that we have, right? Seeing, hearing, touching. So, can Pratyaksha Praman give us full knowledge? There is a famous saying that seeing is believing, but is seeing really believing?
No.
Because we get bewildered so easily. We'll see some of the illusions here. When we see a rail track, you know, it appears that far away from here that those rail tracks would meet together. That is our sense perception by seeing the rail tracks, right? So are they going to meet? Or there are these mirrors which are distorted, which shows distorted reflections. So when you see yourself in that mirror, you might see yourself as very tall or short or fat or thin or distorted images. But is that your real shape and size if the mirror is distorted? Although you are seeing, looking into the mirror, but is it giving the right reflection of yourself? No, right? Uh, Similarly, there is an example of this refraction. When a pencil is put in a glass of water, it appears to be broken. So that is from our sense perception, it is uh, broken. But is it really broken? Another good example of having what we see is not the truth is very famous, which is mirage that we see either in desert or a hot summer day if you're driving. And this is really fascinating. I mean, when we were kids, we were very convinced that, okay, we see water on the road while driving, while going in the bus. I remember myself, oh, there is definitely some water there. And then as we approached that point, there was no water. But you could see the reflection similar to how you see in water. This everybody might have experienced, right? So the point that we are trying to make is that uh, the knowledge that we acquire from our senses might not be complete. Okay. We have these five senses: sight, touch, hearing, taste, smell. And the knowledge that we acquire from that, it's not that we do not acquire any knowledge, we acquire knowledge, but it's not really complete knowledge. Sometimes we may come to a wrong conclusion if we just rely on what we are seeing, touching, hearing, and all. And why is that so? So the Shastras define that we have every living entity has these four defects which cause them to for their knowledge that they acquire from their own effort will have also these four defects, because we also have these four defects. Now, the first defect is that our senses themselves are imperfect. We'll go into the detail. The second defect is we get illusioned easily. The third defect is that we have a tendency to make mistakes. And the fourth defect is that we have a cheating propensity. So let's go into the first defect, which is imperfect senses. This is very easy to understand. So by what we mean by we have imperfect senses is uh, we use these five senses to acquire knowledge, but these senses have their limitations, right? There is not, I mean, there are so many things which we cannot see, but they exist. Like, for example, this is the uh, limitation of an eye, a human eye. Maybe some animal eyes might be better than human eyes in that sense that we cannot see beyond the range of this spectrum 400 to 700 millimicron wavelength we can see, but beyond that we cannot see. But that doesn't mean those things don't exist, like cosmic rays, gamma rays, microwave rays, or radio waves and everything, and it's good actually if we were able to see them. Then we would see like so many things going around, like when there'll be a phone buzzing, we'll see, okay, some color is colorful waves are catching, the phone is catching some colorful waves, and it'll be a distraction. So we have this limitation that we can only see the visible spectrum of light, and not beyond that. So the eyes are limited. Another example from similarly is from the ears also. Can we hear all the sound? Sound is also a wavelength, have several wavelengths. And the audible area for human beings is from 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz. The sound below the frequency of 20 hertz, we cannot hear. Infrasound or ultrasonic sounds also we cannot hear, which are higher than 20,000 hertz. But there are animals who can sense those sounds. So in that sense, animals have a better faculty to acquire knowledge. So somebody can say that these defects we can overcome by using sophisticated instruments. Like, for example, if we have limitation to see very small objects or very far away objects, we can use microscopes or telescopes. But one of the scientists, Eugene, he points out that even if we have telescopes and all, eventually we will be relying on our senses of what photos are taken from the telescopes, right? So again, the knowledge that we are acquiring from through our senses might be limited. We can amplify the things, but the way these instruments are capturing, we don't know whether they are capturing the right thing or not. It can be a little more refined, but still doesn't give a complete full knowledge of what we see around us. So that's the first defect that we all have. We have imperfect senses. Any questions or comments on this? The second defect that we all have is we become illusioned very easily. So what we mean by being illusioned is we acquire these knowledge from our senses, but even with when we are acquiring the knowledge with our senses, they can give us different results and at different times. Sometimes, this is we'll go over some examples of how we become illusioned. Uh, Here is an example. Let's say we want to know whether an orange is a sweet or a sour orange. Okay. If we eat that orange after eating a gulab jamun, we'll come to a conclusion that the orange is sour because we will not be able to the sweetness will be hide it because we already ate a gulab jamun and our tongue is still in that taste of the sweetness. It has tasted the higher, very sweet thing, so that the sweetness of orange will not come out. But if we, let's say, if we eat a lemon and then eat orange after that, then we may come to a conclusion that the orange is sweet. Anybody experience this? Like many people, drink tea or milk, and if they eat some sweet and then after that they drink milk, even if it is sugar has been added, it feels like, oh, maybe we forgot to add sugar to this. So the same thing can give us different insight into an object based on uh, what we have previously perceived. So similarly, another example is of touch, skin. So if you want to know whether this glass of water is hot or cold, uh, if we have touched something hot and then we touch the water, it might appear that the water is cold. Or if we touch something cold first, like ice or something, and then we touch water, we might feel that the water is warm. Agreed. Like this is very commonly we can observe around us. Now, again, there are many examples of how we get illusioned. There are so many illusory images that float around WhatsApp nowadays, right? Okay, what is this? Like, for example, this picture is has I'm pretty sure like you might have seen this. Is this a picture of a young or old woman? So if you see it in one perspective, you see that there is this old lady is there. It has a big nose and very old. On the other hand, if you see it in a different perspective, you might see that okay, this is a young girl looking the other way, right? Okay. What about this image? What do you see?
Triangle. Triangle.
You see a triangle, right? But is there a triangle? There is no triangle, but we still see a triangle here. Another image of an old and a young, man and an old woman, and then there are some people who are playing some musical instruments and all. Now, this image again, if you move your head, it appears that there are three cylinders that are rotating, but nothing is moving here, but it appears to be moving. Is somebody?
No, no one's waiting in the room.
No one is waiting in the room, right? This one is similar to the previous one. If you move your head closer or far, you see that these flowers are turning around. But this is also a still image. Uh, this one, you focus on the center dot and then move your head closer to the screen and farther from the screen. You might see that the inner circle and the outer circle are turning in opposite directions. But they are all still images. Uh, so similarly, all our senses have this tendency to be illusioned. They get illusioned very easily. Okay. What do we have next? The third defect is we have a tendency to commit mistakes. What does that mean is, although even if we acquire the right kind of knowledge from uh, our observations, still we can easily commit mistakes in drawing our conclusions. Uh, for example, in the history, medical history, there have been so many mistakes that the scientists have committed, and they uh, some of them have really caused a lot of loss also, even the loss of life. Uh, Here is one example that earlier brain was thought to be an organ that cools the blood. It was not uh, the modern medicine science thought that it is an organ which keeps the blood cool and has no other function. But now slowly we got to know that brain has a lot of other functions. Uh, Pituitary gland was considered to be having no function. So if there is any defect that the doctors are seeing in the pituitary gland, they would advise to remove that tissue. But then it's not a useless organ. It has its own function. So earlier it was concluded that the pituitary gland has no function, and it is a vestigial organ or useless. But without that, a human being cannot really uh, survive and cannot have. Uh, there are many other bodily functions that pituitary glands help as a catalyst, like not directly but indirectly. Another very big uh, mistake that these scientists have came across in their research is the value of Hubble's constant. So it's a constant. If somebody who is into physics, there is a constant which come into various equations that describe the size of the universe and all. But that Hubble's constant, the value has changed over time. So a constant is meant to be, the value will never change. But every few years they discover that no, there is something wrong with that constant that we came up with. Its value is something else. So when that value changes in all those equations that they have previously came up with, the size of the universe, there are various other things that change. So their conclusion is always changing. So is it really a constant or is it a variable? Uh, and there is no really in these examples, there were genuine conclusions that the scientists came up with. They thought that no, this is the right thing, but eventually it turned out to be wrong, even after so much of experimentation. So sometimes, there is one story that is described as a joke, but it is something to think about. Like, there was once a scientist who was doing an experiment on a cockroach that, how does cockroach hear? So what it did is, there was a cockroach and he asked the cockroach to move, 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 move. So the cockroach was moving. And then what he did is he cut off one of his legs and he said, move, 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 move. So the cockroach was moving, but a little crippled. So then he cut off his second leg. Then he said, move, move, move. Then the cockroach started moving, but little more crippled. So slowly he cut off all his leg and then said, move, move, move. And the cockroach was not moving at all. So what conclusion did he derive? That a cockroach hears through its legs. We know that this is a joke, like, but there is this is how the scientific methodology works. You do some observation and you can come to an entirely wrong conclusion based on your observations. we'll see some examples of this fourth defect, which is called the cheating propensity. Uh, in science, especially like the examples that we'll see now, they are some of them are related to the theory of evolution. How that's like a cheating theory. It is not deriving some conclusion, but uh, the scientists have modified or tampered with the evidence to come up with different conclusion that they thought that okay, if I have some preconceived notion that this is how things should be, and I observe something and it is not matching, then what we do is we modify our observation in a way to fit our previous conclusions. So here, one of the examples is uh, the pilt down man in the evolution, that there was a man, there was a species that came along which was a pilt down man, and they had some evidence based on the fossil, and later it was observed that that fossil was actually not the real fossil that the scientists have discovered. They discovered some fossil, and then they modified that in order to fit that shape. So that was a case that was there, and it was a made up connecting link. It was not a real uh, connecting link between the apes and human. Similarly, in 1953, there was a fraud revealed in human skull, and the filed jaw. Jaw was of certain shape, and then the scientists who were discovering, they filed it to make it a different shape to prove their previous notions that, okay, this might have happened. So in order to prove that, they modified the evidence. Uh, there are so many like this. I mean, if somebody is into this theory of evolution and how historically, we'll see one small video on this also. Uh, there was this jaw was observed, and then there was some conclusion that okay, there should have been uh, in the evolution there should have been a species whose jaw should look like this, but the jaw that they observed was not looking like this, so they modified it.
The three entirely different reconstructions made for the fossil called Xanthropus is a famous example showing how persistent evolutionists are in producing these false men. Another intermediate transitional form fabricated by evolutionists was the Nebraska man. This was cooked up in 1922 on the basis of a single fossil tooth. The evolutionists did not neglect to give it an ostentatious Latin name, Asparapithecus paralcuca, or to make imaginary drawings related to it. It was soon revealed that the tooth that had been the source of inspiration for Nebraska man, in fact, belonged to a wild pig. Many other fossil skulls have been presented as great evidence for evolution, failed one by one. Neanderthal man was advanced as evidence in 1856, dismissed in 1960. Piltdown man was advanced as evidence in 1912, dismissed in 1953. Zinjanthropus was advanced as evidence in 1959, dismissed in 1960. Ramapithecus was advanced as evidence in 1964, dismissed in 1979.
So there are many evidences, and these are like purposefully forged in order to come to a different conclusion that they have published before. So to support their theory, they do this. This is like cheating propensity that we have. So we'll see more examples of this cheating propensity and tendency to make mistakes in the second defect also called the Anumana Praman. Theories based on observation and guesswork. So when we try to acquire knowledge from our senses and we know their limitations, and then we make some guesswork. Okay, what might be going on based on what we are hearing, seeing. Uh, for example, let's say, uh, if we are outside a home and we hear a noise from that room of from some neighbor. Okay, we all many of us lives in flats, right? So there is a next door neighbor and we hear some noise, and the noise is uh, looks like a man and woman, they are fighting. Okay, so then we are just hearing that noise and we can come to a different conclusion, that okay, this husband and wife, they are having some quarrel, or somebody might come to a conclusion that there is some intruder in their home, and then the lady is fighting with that person, or uh, vice versa, right? But are these conclusive? Can we say for sure that that is what is going on? These are all guessworks, right? We are all guessing. In fact, this is a major I would say reason behind why people misunderstand somebody else, and then there are relationships that get broken because we do this guesswork. We speculate, okay, he treated me like this because he is not thinking good of me. So these are all not facts, but based on guess, and eventually it ruins the relationship between people, right? So in this case, where you're hearing different, a man and a woman quarreling, uh, actually it might be that somebody is just watching TV and a show is going on, and the fight is actually going on in the show. So there is a tendency that based on our observation, we start guessing, okay, this might be like this might be like that. Uh, and again, one of the very good example here again is the theory of evolution. Uh, so one of the even Charles Darwin, who is the founder of this theory of evolution, uh, see what says. I am a firm believer that without speculation, there is no good and original observation. After 5 years work, I allowed myself to speculate on the subject and drew up some short notes. These I enlarged in 1844 into a sketch of the conclusion which seemed to me probable. So it could have happened like this. And this became one of the most popular theory of how life might have come and how life have evolved over the years. And this is what is being taught in the schools as facts, not as a as a possibility. They all these examples that we saw of Neanderthal man or Pitman or whatever, they are all based on the followers of this theory, okay, who firmly believe that this might have happened, and then the only way to come to these conclusion is you have to speculate. You have to make some stories. Okay, this might have happened, this might have happened, so this is, I got this fossil, looks like there might have been a person who looked like this, and his actual photo must have been like this. So they will come up with these drawings, and these drawings are available in the if you have science books which talks about theory of evolution, they will draw these pictures, and they just concocted these pictures. It's not a photograph taken, okay, this man was like this. And they look so realistic, they'll make it black and white and whatnot, and as if somebody who was already present there might have drawn this. but these are all made up pictures, and by looking at pictures, the student will think, oh yeah, there must have been a species like this who look like this. Sorry. So these conclusion, for example, they have drawn from the fossil evidences that they've seen, but in fact there have been evidences of human kind of skulls of very very ancient uh, times, and it is believed that human race have started maybe some few thousand years ago, like 30-40,000 years ago. But there have been evidences of human uh, beings being there in millions of years ago. But then, based on their conclusion that human beings have been evolved and they must have been 100,000 years ago, what they do is they modify those evidences that they see that okay, a very very long time ago human beings have been there. They'll modify them and say that no, that was some other species, that was not human. And in fact, for such evidences, even a single evidence, if you receive, although very ancient evidences, you will not even find it. But even if you find one single evidence that concludes that human beings have been there for millions of years, but that is not you ask any high school student based on their studies, what they have done in the school, nobody will conclude this. So human beings and apes simultaneously existed millions of years ago. This conclusion, it is not coming up. One of the thing that we again he Darwin he said ke how whales came into being. So what he concluded is that the bear, the bear was looking for food, and somehow he was chasing some mosquitoes, and those mosquitoes entered an ocean. So the bear also, in order to eat the mosquitoes, he entered into the ocean, and then he was opening his mouth bigger and bigger, and over a period of time, that bear turned into whale. So that is the kind of conclusion that is being drawn, and it is being taught, and it is being believed to be true. Well, you can put the bear in water and now also, and you can observe it for millions of years. It will not turn into whale. It doesn't make sense. Does anybody think, and you have people studied this theory of evolution in their high school and believe that this must be true? Because I can talk about myself. When I read this to theory of evolution, I was very convinced that oh wow, it's such an amazing theory. It tickles your brain a little bit. Oh wow, this might have happened like this. So convincing. But now when I look back, it doesn't make sense. In North America, the black bear was seen swimming for hours with wide mouth open, thus catching, like a whale, insects in water. Even in so extreme a case as this, we supply of if the supply of insects were constant, and if better adapted competitors did not already exist in the country, I can see no difficulty in a race of bears by natural selection, more and more aquatic in their structure and habits, with larger and larger mouths. Still, a creature was produced as monstrous as a whale.
प्रभु I always think कि humans के अंदर evolution क्यों नहीं हुआ जब से वो बने हैं as per science. तो हम इतने साल पुराने हैं human beings, but उनका तो कुछ evolution हुआ ही नहीं. वो जैसे है वैसे ही है.
नहीं, ऐसा भी वो ऐसा बोलते हैं ना कि अभी तो ह्यूमन जो है वो अभी काफी रीसेंट वो है, इट टेक्स लाइक मिलियंस ऑफ ईयर्स, तो मिलियन ऑफ ईयर्स के बाद वो ह्यूमन भी चेंज होके कुछ और बन जाएंगे।
तो ये बियर्स वगैरह की थ्योरी, उनके हिसाब से ये मिलियंस ऑफ इयर्स में ये बियर्स वेल्स बने हैं।
हाँ, मिलियंस ऑफ ईयर्स में देयर वाज अ कांस्टेंट सप्लाई ऑफ इंसेक्ट्स, और वो धीरे धीरे जो बेयर था उसकी जो स्पीशीज थी वो भी पानी के अंदर ही इंसेक्ट्स को ढूंढती रही, और उसमें से मान लो लेट्स से देयर वर so this theory, for this theory to hold true, there has to be like millions of bears doing this, और उन millions of bears में से जो है they will produce offsprings that will not be you know suitable for aquatic life, but there will be few that will be suitable, and then those has to be millions of them, and then when millions of them are there who are suited for aquatic life, slowly each and every change has to come into millions in order for that selection to work. So that means the population of you bears to become into whales should be like trillions and trillions of bears should be there in order to for the bear to become eventually a whale. Long necked giraffes and short necked giraffes existed together, but shorter necked giraffes disappeared because they were hungry and they couldn't reach leaves from the trees, so they died. And long necked giraffes survived. This is why we only see giraffes with long legs today. So, so that means the other species shouldn't have been there who can eat only who are not tall. So the goats and sheep should have disappeared, right? Only the tall necked animals should have been there. Or if those animals like sheep and goats, they were able to survive because they could eat grass, but the long necked giraffe could not eat grass because it had some ego that I won't bend down my neck in front of anybody to eat grass. But then how would it drink water? Just the rainwater or something? Or like would it, bend its neck to drink water from a pond?
तो प्रभु जी, समटाइम आई थिंक इवोल्यूशन ऐसे भी हो सकता था कि दे कुड हैव फाइंड डिफरेंट सोर्स ऑफ फूड वेयर दे कुड सर्वाइव। नेक ही क्यों लंबी होनी थी?
This is what we study from the experts.
वैसे भी I also think that theory of evolution is really, it's very hard to believe that, because theory of evolution also talks about necessities, because it's when it was necessary, then these necessary changes were made. But the kind of sophistication we have, for example, even the variety of dishes that we cook, that sophistication was not a need. So if
Yeah.
we were apes trying to evolve and then trying to just survive, then if we were, when we became human and we were eating raw food and whatsoever from the jungles, and just snatching fruits and roots and whatsoever, and we were eating, then how come we are so sophisticated now? What was the need of becoming sophisticated?
Yeah.
So
So
we did have tail, right? I mean, it eventually went and things evolved.
what is that?
Tail, tail.
Tail.
ऐसा
Mm-hmm.
बोलते हैं कि इंसानों में पूंछ हुआ करती थी छोटी सी, वो अब नहीं है। पता नहीं मेरे को।
हाँ, हो सकता होती हो, अब नहीं होती, not
थोड़ा बहुत
denying that.
शारीरिक इवोल्यूशन हुआ भी होगा, things like we don't use enough. लेकिन ऐसा
See,
नहीं।
I think within a species you can have slight variations.
Right.
ठीक है, जैसे मान लो कोई अभी भी कोई you will find that human beings are born with 6 fingers, right?
Right.
So there could have been see, one thing is that there is a when we saw like in the last class we discussed there is so much of design, right? I remember one of the arguments in support of this evolution theory that I remember from my school days is that all the tiny, like when the embryo starts growing, in the initial stages, all of them look alike. Like all the mammals, they look like a small tiny fish kind of a shape. Whether it is human beings or whether it is actually a fish or whether it is a bear, they all look very similar in their first few days of like growth, right? So with that, you can one conclusion you can draw is that okay, they all started with they all evolved over time, because initially, if you see their initial few days of growth, they look similar. But if an intelligent being is designing it, why can't it have a template? Now it is using that template for different species at the same time. So in that template, if let's say there is a tail bone is there, but in case of animals, it is allowing it to grow with as per design. In the other, in the template, you are not allowing it to grow. See, when we are uh, in software industry also, right? When we have to make a huge application, we make some reusable components, right? We can still have these reusable components that you eventually combine in different shapes and forms to come up with a larger application. So why can't God design in a way that they have some building blocks that is reused in all the animals, all the bodies, types of bodies of a particular species, right? Or even within the same, what is, even if you see there is a uh, वो animal kingdom का classification जो है, like there is species, then family, then something else which have some common traits. So if there is common trait amongst that you see among different animals, it could be a result of that templating or building blocks, right? So even from our scriptures, we have this concept of evolution, but that is not an evolution of bodies, but the evolution of soul from one species to another. Okay, so the soul occupies different species. So the difference between the evolution that we talk in our scriptures and the different in the evolution that is talked about in the modern sciences, that like let's say you have a bike, you keep it pumping, and the bike will become a car. Whereas this is the modern version of evolution. Whereas the Vedic version of evolution is that you are a person who is a driver. Today you have enough uh, credit that you can buy a bike, so you drive a bike. Later, when you have more credits, you can buy a car. So that is the soul evolution. First he has a bike, and then now later he has a car. But the modern theory of evolution is that there is a bike and you keep pumping it, or you add more fuel to it or whatever, slowly that bike will turn into a car. So there is some concept of evolution, but it's different. So there are many loopholes in this theory of evolution. So where we are coming from is the anumanas. This is all based on guesswork, and you cannot firmly say that this is the the real thing that that must have happened. Like it's yesterday we were discussing. We had a get together in Kids Kirtan. So this Amazon has this culture. Then you cannot. You have to write documents, and in those documents you cannot say that I think this will work. You have to be firm. I know this will work if we do it this way. So that's the language that they promote. So they do not promote that language of I think it will work like this. But this all theories, they are all based on I think this might have happened. So the Vedas say that the soul who is residing in one body moves at the time of death to another body, not that the one body changes into another. Now, I mean, in case of this, the examples that we saw, even if the doctors, even if these evolutionists make mistake, it doesn't really make any difference to our lives, right? Okay, they are coming up with some theory today, tomorrow they'll come up with some other theory. How does it matter? Other than, it is there in the textbooks, but it may have, some of them have may have like serious implications also. Uh, like all these modern gadgets, on the name of improving the quality of life, these are discovered, that they will eventually improve the quality of life. But the conclusion is that if you make these a household thing, thinking that this is going to improve the quality of life, and people become addicted to these, it can cause lot of other troubles, like sleeplessness, computer vision syndrome, depression, loss of relationship. Like the kids are becoming more and more restless. They want their mind to be agitated. They have been trained in a way that all the time they are agitated. They cannot sit peacefully for some time. So, these scientific research, sometimes they trouble the whole human race. This happened recently, right? In 2003, this lady who did a blood test and then did some mistake, and I think uh, I don't remember this case, but something she concluded and came up with a medicine which actually she made a lot of money with that. She sold that idea, but a lot of people got inaccurate blood tests, and it threatened their lives. 9 billion fraud was revealed. There was this bubonic plague uh, in some 1800s, where a lot of people were dying through plague, and then some research was conducted, and initially it was concluded, so it was in 1300s, that the cats are causing this plague. So there was an effort made to get rid of all the cats, and when they got rid of cat, that plague spread it all the more faster. And later they came out, to a conclusion that actually rats were causing the plague, and it worsened because they have killed all the cats. Now there are no cats to control the plague. So it spread wildly in the European area, and caused like lot of deaths. So making these mistakes, speculating, can be a dangerous thing, even in the material world. Okay. You try to solve one problem and cause another bigger problem. So the technological development that we see around us is like that. So earlier, the means of transportation were, you know, like a horse carriage or something. Okay. Now we want it to be easily accessible. You don't need much skill. You came up with these vehicles. Uh, and slowly these old modes of transport, like animals, were being used, camels and horses and all. Nowadays, we don't see them as often. I remember in my hometown, when I was little, we used to see in every street there were uh, people from villages. They used to come on camels, and you could see camels in each and every street. Now we don't see any camels there. Everything is filled with cars and scooters, and the pollution that has been uh, has been a major problem in big cities, like in Delhi. When we enter now, when we go to Delhi, even when we are almost 100 200 meters above in the flight, we can sense from the air itself that we have reached the region of Delhi. It's so stinking. uh, we cannot obtain complete knowledge by these two methods called pratyaksha praman or anuman praman. Uh, Especially when we talk to the subject matters like spirituality, the pratyaksha and anuman praman cannot lead us anywhere, because pratyaksha will not work, because trying to understand spirituality through pratyaksha praman is like using instruments which are not meant for it. So let's say if uh, you are given a task to measure the weight of something, or you are asked, okay, can you get me 1 kg of rice? And somebody asks, okay, I can get 1 kg of rice, give me an instrument to measure, and you give him a thermometer. Can you use a thermometer to measure 1 kg of rice and give 1 kg of rice? So using your pratyaksha praman to understand spirituality is just trying to do that. You're trying to use your, you know, eyes, ears to understand spirit, which is not a matter which cannot be seen, which cannot be heard from the gross senses because it is subtle. So you cannot use that. It is already, I mean, even to understand material world, it is imperfect. What to talk about spirituality, spiritual world? It's not the right source. Similarly, Anuman Praman will not work. Anyways, we have a lot of tendency to cheat, and on the name of spirituality, it's one of the most, uh, cheated profession nowadays. We find so many bogus gurus, speakers, based on guesswork. They come up with some speculative theories and they try to preach. So it's dangerous to operate a machine with half knowledge. Similarly, it is dangerous to manipulate the universal cosmic machine without knowing about it from the creator who created it. So uh, whenever a company manufactures a machine, it gives a manual along with it on how to operate that machine. If you don't read that manual and try to uh, with your own speculation and that I will figure it out, you are gonna mess. Just like a kid's video. I'll just skip it. He's just this bear is trying to use that machine, but he do not know how to use that machine. So in order to be happy, we started with the concept of happiness. We have to have complete knowledge, and we have to have the manual which can tell us which can give us the complete knowledge of how this material world works. Just see, my dear friend, how four defects keep us blind to the truth. There is no other way other than pratyaksha or anuman praman to know the complete knowledge, free from all dangers. No, there is the third process called shabda praman, hearing from a bona fide authority. So it's very important to know each and every word of hearing from a bona fide authority. Not that you can hear from anybody, because it might be coming from pratyaksha or anuman praman, but no, it has to be coming from bona fide authority. So these the knowledge based on the pratyaksha praman and anuman praman, they are taught in the school. That's why the syllabus keeps changing, because every few years the thing that you studied previously do not hold any longer. Whereas shabda praman is long lasting, eternal, and it is received in the parampara. Like in Bhagavad Gita, uh, Lord Krishna says, Evam parampara praptam imam rajarishyo vidu. So this knowledge is received in the parampara. So one person teaching to another, the same message is passed on to the generation one by one, without any deviation. So that's the way of acquiring the absolute knowledge about the absolute truth. So here is another example. Let's say a person is very thirsty. He's in a laboratory setup. He's in some kind of a research lab, and one person is very thirsty. He enters a lab, and he sees that in a uh, glass there is some water, and then there are some two pieces of lime, beside that glass. So he may come to a conclusion that, okay, maybe the lab assistant might have just had their lunch. So he might have prepared this water, and since the lemon is also there, so I'm very thirsty. Let me drink this water. And that water might not be water. It might be some acid. He's in the lab setting, right? So what is the fastest and easiest way for him to know whether this is water or something else? You ask the lab assistant, is this water or what? Can I drink it or not? So the authority in that case is the lab assistant. He can tell, I was just doing some experiment. This water, I just kept the acid here. It is my preparation for the experiment. But in the meanwhile, there was a lunchtime, so I had my lunch, and these lemons are from my lunch, but they don't have any relation. Whereas when you enter the lab, you might come to a different conclusion. So in that case, the authority is that lab assistant. Thank God that, you ask the lab assistant uh, what is this liquid inside this glass. So another example is like, how can a child know who his father is? Through experimentation, if he tries to find out, it will take him like years and years, like his whole lifetime, to figure out who his father is. So this method is called inductive knowledge. Like, you come to a conclusion based on uh, some smaller set. You come to a conclusion about the larger set. So for example, uh, man is mortal. Okay. This is a piece of knowledge. You can come to this conclusion through inductive process, which is, you see that, okay, uh, I see people around, they take birth and they die. So I've seen 100 of these people. I know about history of hundreds of people who took birth and died. Thousands of people, hundred thousands of people who take birth and die. So I can conclude that anybody who takes birth will die. This is called inductive knowledge. But with this knowledge, can you conclude that every man who has taken birth will die? Maybe you have not seen that person as yet who has taken birth and not yet died. There is still a possibility. So this inductive knowledge uh, might not give the right knowledge. But let's say if you hear from a bona fide authority that man is mortal, or everybody who takes birth has to die, then you can conclude, okay, I have heard from the authority that this is how it works. Then anybody who takes birth, you can conclude that today or tomorrow or sometime in life, he will die. He cannot be immortal. So this is called deductive process of acquiring knowledge. So similarly, like in the previous example, if a child wants to know who his father is, this inductive method, he has to experiment on, do a DNA test of all the people around in the world. Maybe he can shortlist a set based on his, appearance. Oh, uh, I'm like a black person, so maybe I should only experiment with the black people. Still, it is not a uh, scalable process of getting to know of who the father is. Other method is, you go and ask your mother who my father is, and she'll tell you. She is the authority in that case. So Vedic knowledge is like that. It's deductive knowledge, and the mother in this case, if you want to know about God, the mother is the Vedas. They will tell you about God directly. Instead of trying to figure out on your own, Vedas are like mother, and God is like supreme father. Vedas can give us the good God knowledge, GK, and not just a general knowledge.
The Vedas, however, are not as well known for presenting historical and scientific knowledge as they are for expounding subtle sciences, such as the power of mantras. We all recognize the power of sound itself by its effects, which can be quite dramatic. Here, a high-pitched frequency shatters a drinking glass. So, we can easily understand that loud sounds can produce substantial reactions. It is commonly believed that mantras can carry hidden power, which can in turn produce profound effects. The ancient Vedic literatures are full of descriptions of weapons being called by mantra. For example, many weapons were invoked by mantra during the epic Kurukshetra war, wherein the Bhagavad Gita itself was spoken. The ancient deployment of Brahmastra weapons, equivalent to modern-day nuclear weapons, are described throughout the Vedic literatures. Additionally, mantras carry hidden spiritual power which can produce significant benefits when chanted properly. Indeed, the Vedas themselves are sound vibrations in literary form and carry a profound message.
So Vedas are our Shabda Praman. They are it's called one of the terms that is used for the Vedas is Apurushay. That is there is a common notion that Vedas are also written by ordinary human beings like you and me. No, it's not like that. They are Apurushay. They, in fact, some of the Vedas, the way uh, originally the Vedas were spoken. It was not written in the written form. It was just heard, and Brahmaji got this knowledge from the Lord through hearing, through the Lord Himself. That is why it is called Apaurushai. Then He divided that knowledge into some subcategories in order for the common man to understand it, and then it was further divided into further different categorizations. But they are coming directly from the God. So the creator of the universe is giving this as a manual of how to operate in this world. That is the Vedic process of learning. it's it's deductive form of knowledge, acquiring knowledge. It's also just Shabda Praman and it is authorized. It's not, it is coming from Sampradaya. So you cannot hear from anybody. Like, for example, let's say it's authorized. Shabda Praman is like getting admission into a bona fide college, which is authorized or affiliated to some bona fide university. It's not that, oh, I want to do my engineering, so just go to any institute and study. You have to go to an institute which is giving the right knowledge, which is recognized by everyone, right? So authorized college is just like the Sampradaya. It is being affiliated to right source, and then the professors are who have heard this knowledge and they are giving that knowledge as it is. They are called, you can see them as gurus. Authorized books similar to our textbooks that we study, you can compare it with the Vedic texts like Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam and all. So it's a university. And in the Vedas, we see that there are so many modern knowledge also which are already have been there in the Vedas. We'll see some examples in this video.
2017. Aerospace engineer Travis Taylor has obtained a model of an aircraft whose design specifications are based solely on information gleaned from ancient Indian texts that are believed to have been formally set to writing in 500 BC. He is going to subject it to wind tunnel analysis to determine if it is a viable flying machine. The aircraft model, created using details garnered from the ancient Indian texts, has proven to be flight-worthy. Is it possible that by studying the ancient Indian texts, we may be able to recreate advanced technology that existed thousands of years ago in India? Ancient astronaut theorists suggest that the texts may also contain details for advanced spacecraft.
In the some of the scriptures, we find there are a lot of predictions given, which we see that are coming true, like appearance of Gautam Buddha, who has who appeared like in 2000 in like 3000 years ago almost, right? But it has been there in Srimad Bhagavatam, which is much more ancient than that. Similarly, appearance of Chanakya Pandit is also described. Appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or Ashoka, or like a lot of predictions are there which we have seen coming true.
The Vedas are amongst the oldest religious scriptures known to mankind and are the source of India's spiritual and cultural heritage. At first glance, the multifaceted culture of the Vedas is a foreign and fascinating mystery to the Western eye. Yet upon deeper examination, we discover a wealth of philosophical, cultural, and social values. India is renowned the world over for the practice of yoga, which increases one's mental and physical strength. However, this is only a fraction of what the Vedas can offer to a progressive global community. India's culinary arts, music, natural medicine, and other sciences are only now becoming known to the West. Conceivably the world's oldest holistic design system, the Vastu Shastra predates and inspired the popular Chinese system of feng shui. The design of a temple, house, or workspace has been proven to exert a considerable influence on one's well-being. The Vastu Shastra was compiled specifically to address this concern and offers practical architectural guidelines. This style of sacred architecture has been implemented in the building of India's largest temples for thousands of years. The sculptures adorning these temples reflect the development and accomplishments of one of man's oldest civilizations. They depict the struggles, failures, and successes of the men who made them the center of their lives. The sophisticated Vedic sciences of astrology, astronomy, cosmology, and metaphysics profoundly influenced the Greeks, Babylonians, and even contemporary scientists with their unparalleled knowledge. Ancient Vedic sages presented precise calculations a millennium before Copernicus, Galileo, Newton, and Einstein.
There are so many scientific facts and figures which are already there in our Vedas that the scientists struggle so much to derive now with their experimentation. Uh, but we have kind of lost this appreciation of our Vedas, and this system was specifically destroyed by the Britishers specifically.
Indologists wish to control and convert the followers of Vedic culture. Therefore, they widely propagated that the Vedas were simply mythology. Max Mueller, perhaps the most well-known early Sanskritist and Indologist, although later in life he glorified the Vedas, initially wrote that the Vedas were worse than savage, and India must be conquered again by education. Its religion is doomed. Thomas Macaulay, who introduced English education into India, wanted to make the residents into a race that was Indian in blood and color, but English in taste, in opinion, in morals, and in intellect. However, the German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer stated that the Sanskrit understanding of these Indologists was like that of young schoolboys. These early Indologists devised the Aryan invasion theory, denying India's Vedic past. They taught that the English educational system is superior. They intentionally misinterpreted Sanskrit texts to make the Vedas look primitive, and they systematically tried to make Indians ashamed of their own culture. Thus, the actions of these Indologists seems to indicate that they were motivated by a racial bias.
Uh, have we experienced this uh, point that, in schools and all, that you are ashamed of of being traditional, and you're considered modern and confident if you follow a more westernized style of living,
Yes, and even today.
right? Even today in schools, colleges, workplace, uh, if you follow, let's say, if you wear a tilak and go to your work, people generally will have some pre-notions that, okay, he's maybe more sentimental religionist kind of a person, and he
Mm.
doesn't know, or he I mean, they will look at him as, somebody who is not very modern and following mythology and primitive, and उसको बोला जाता है जैसे अपने हिंदी में बोलते हैं ना, गामी, he's uncivilized, right?
Mm.
And that's why people are the whole uh, lifestyle has now become so much westernized because it is influenced by uh, western style of living. uh, the regular, like, even पहनावा जो है, खाना पीना, सब कुछ जो है, it has been influenced by the western culture, although we have such a rich and traditional and very, which has some base, some foundational reasoning behind whatever we do, whereas the western lifestyle, they don't have any reasoning, but they just do it out of their instinct.
Even बच्चे बच्चे जो हमारे होते हैं, like if they recite the poems, then everyone will praise. पर कोई श्लोका तो recite नहीं करता बच्चे.
Hmm.
And
Yeah, उनको
we never try कि उनको ये बचपन में ही हम उनको श्लोका रिसाइट करना सिखाएं. बट पोएम्स रिसाइट करना तो हम सबने ही सिखाई है.
करेक्ट. इवन अगर आप जैसे मान लो, अभी कोई, विल एनीबडी गो wearing a dhoti to his workplace? No, right? um, Still, at
बट
least, I
Only
feel
only
even
on the
in South India, at least there is some culture still better than North India. North India में तो ज़्यादा ही हालत खराब है. South India में at least you will see many people I have seen, they at least wear tilak. Even after coming to the US, they will wear tilak and come to the office. ऐसा भी देखा है. पर नॉर्थ इंडिया में तो ज़्यादा ही अपने कल्चर को लेके ना बहुत ही दे फील अशेम्ड.
वर्क
I would
प्लेस
like
तो बहुत दूर की बात है प्रभु जी. इवन अगर हम अपने घर में ही अगर चले जाएं धोती पहन के या साड़ी पहन के, तो घर वाले ही टोक देंगे, ये क्या ये क्या हो
या
रहा है.
या
I would like to add over here something.
या
Can I?
यस यस.
So you know what you are basically saying. The cultural values and all these things are inherent in the ecosystem, in the families, and their ways of living. And it is so much etched in the local culture. So that I was, just reading an analysis of movies. Why Southern movies are doing better than Bollywood movies is because if you see Bollywood movies have been inspired mostly from what we call as the Peshawar influence, compared to South Indian movies which have a lot of traditional Indian influence. That is one part. Secondly, and that's what they are doing good, even in North India. And secondly, the other thing is that yes, the attire, the tilak, and all these things, these are to an extent, maybe in Maharashtra also it is a bit there, but
Yes.
Beyond Maharashtra, again it is taboo. It is a real taboo. But yes, it is over the years it has set in like this. Difficult to eradicate right away. Uh, that's unless people are aware and they don't feel ashamed. That's very important.
Yeah. So it takes. I've heard some this saying. It's a very strong saying that it takes, just one generation of not giving knowledge to spoil the whole culture. If you don't pass it to your kids, they will not have anything to pass on to the next generation. So it just takes one generation to spoil the whole culture. तो वो अभी
Uh,
कहीं कहीं पे बचा है because it has been passed on, and that's what we say, right? The shabda praman, or acquiring knowledge through the parampara system, learning from the ancient texts. That's how the Gurukul system or the ancient Indian system of learning was based upon. Now that is completely lost. If not completely, like majority, it is lost, and in the direction where we are going is not in accordance to that. So it's not so disappointing also. It's There are still people who are following, and uh, people who are appreciating this knowledge uh, globally. There has been a rise in both the parties. One party who is going away from it, and one party who is going towards it. So there is an awareness, and we need to see which party we want to join, right?
so basically, I have a strong view that uh, from a cultural perspective, West and South India are still aligned to a large extent.
Yes, definitely.
East India, I think, is the most divergent, especially Bengal and to an extent North India,
Yeah.
Punjab side, core Punjab and core Bengal, that areas. For them, I have seen generations wherein Hanumana was a creature of ridicule. Okay, so it
Mhm.
was not something to be worshipped. Now it is Hanumana is only character. So possibly because of the Khalistan influence in Punjab or the communism in Bengal, what happens is it gets into the textbook. When it gets into the textbook, the entire generation takes it like that. And I have one very strong observation that parents
Mhm.
have a big role to play in how we get our children evolved, in how we sort of balance them, adapt modernity as well as in inherently carry forward the cultural flames with us. It is marrying both of them. That is something very important. And I see South India and West India holding the cultural flag aloft. So I stay in Mumbai. I see Mumbai, Pune. I have observed Bangalore. The way they manage it, really,
Mhm.
really, whatever, however senior a person is, culturally people are strong. Chennai also, they are culturally strong. They may have some other divergent views. That's a different matter. But with respect to Hindi and all, but from a cultural perspective, they are strong. That also I have seen. So I agree with you. There are certain significant pockets where people have been able to marry both of them,
Yeah.
modernity as well as our own inherent cultural attributes.
Yeah. In fact, I remember I have attended like one or two weddings in Maharashtra. And they are very
Hmm.
traditional, and it appears like this is something which is very husband and wife, the newlywed, they are entering into some serious thing. Whereas in North India, the weddings are like just pomp shomp and all, like that. It's more like a showcase, and not carrying any traditional uh, aspect to it. And
It's
whatever the minimal
mostly
traditional thing is there, that is just to because we have to do it, we are doing it this way. Like the Maharashtrian weddings that I attended, they were only playing like Shanghai,
hmm.
and or the only aspect of the wedding was the yajna that you do, the shanai that will be played. Whereas in North India, that the Bollywood dance and whatnot, and wearing opulent clothing, that is all wedding is all about.
So it's basically a show of culture. So the hilarious things in around Delhi, the doula coming by helicopter, landing there, and you gift gift cars to, and you gift jewelry to it's basically, that's how the culture, which is evident everywhere. And I think, good part about India is the coexistence of all people. So we
Hmm.
have all sort of people who are there, and then show of culture has evolved because many people who, I'm sorry to say, are not that educated, have garnered money in the last 15, 20 years because of the real estate boom and many other boom. Earlier people used to earn money. Now a lot of Indians have a lot of money and they don't
Hmm.
know how to spend. So what they end up doing is this extravagance,
Yeah,
and that's okay. You have to live with it basically, unless they get enlightened.
yeah, yeah.
थोड़ा नॉर्थ इंडियन के सपोर्ट में बोलूं मैं,
हाँ बिल्कुल.
अगर I totally agree with the fact that the North Indians are little deviated from the original culture that we used to have, and the South India is still more cultural. But this credit actually goes to the North Indians. अगर आप इन्वेजन का बात करोगे, जब ब्रिटिश और मुगल आए थे, तो ये जो बेल्ट था ना, महाराष्ट्र वाला बेल्ट, वहां तक वो 200-300 साल में वहां तक कैप्चर कर पाए, नीचे आने नहीं दिया उनको.
Yeah,
अगर आप देखोगे कि अपना नॉर्थ इंडिया का जो टेम्पल वगैरह है या जो लाइब्रेरी थी अपनी नालंदा, सब डिस्ट्रॉय किया गया, अपना लैंग्वेज संस्कृत डिस्ट्रॉय हो गया. यहाँ के
हाँ.
लोग आज भी वही एक कॉमन लैंग्वेज बोल पा रहे हैं क्योंकि वो नॉर्थ इंडियन लड़ाई करते रहे और उनको नीचे आने नहीं दिए.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
और जब
The
हम
credit goes,
जब
yes.
when we lost everything and then we rebuilt, ठीक है, हम लोग अपना ओरिजिनल कल्चर से दूर है क्योंकि हमको मालूम ही नहीं है, लेकिन we are the one to save the South India. I live in Bangalore, but this is a fact.
No, I
Yeah.
would like to point out something over there. So let me tell you, I accept that obviously even North India to an extent, the first person everybody knows who faced, the invaders was King Dahira from Sindh, and 700, just within 40 years of Islam coming in, he had fought. So nothing taking away the credit as far as the entire belt of Rajasthan, Haryana, Punjab, even till Afghanistan, the empire was there. There were these Hindu kings or whoever it was in, even in UP and all. So I think, in different ages in our country, and this is a very important topic I want to say, if it is related to the national integration, I should talk about that everybody at different point of times have worked for Sanatana. Okay. So when they attacked, and I am forgetting the name of that person who basically was instrumental to ensure that for 300 years the attackers did not come back. Okay, I'm forgetting the name of the person. So a lot of credit goes to North India. But it is also a fact that later on, the Marwar region, not the Mewar region, the Marwar region ने संधि किया उनके साथ. That's a different matter. Second, we also should not forget the fact that lot of places of worship which were desecrated were later on revived by the Marathas only. It was the Murkh Marathas only, sort of Murkh, why I am saying that they went and fought the Panipat ka ladai. It was not needed, and they were not supported by many of the local people at that point of time. The North Indian empires, many of them, they did not support them. So let's also take the fact. Third thing, during around 1000 AD, or where I'm not forgetting the year, when Buddhism had taken over entire India, it was this young Sankaracharya from Kerala who went and revived, Sanatan Dharma and established the Dhammas. Yeah. During independence, a large amount of effort was put in by people from Bengal. If you go to cellular jail in Andaman, 80% are Bengalis. The name's etched over there. What I want to say is that at different points of time, different people have contributed to Sanatana. Whether it is
Yes.
the North Indian Sikh empire of Ranjit Singh, or whether it is Lalitaditya in Kashmir, or whether it is the Jats who fought, whether Bengalis during independence, or Shankara from, Shankaracharya, or the Marathas. Everybody had contributed at different points of time. So it is not that we are being, and that's the beauty of our culture, that we have a
I
Chinese
think
dosa. Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt here, Saurabh. I just want to just include this, that we are actually, I think we're getting a little off track or off topic. Yes, everybody has contributed. Yes, everybody's done it, and yes, the North Indians also prevented from entering into the South, and everybody has the credit. The point of mentioning that the mentioning that this is happening, that is happening, was that this culture is being lost. So if it is good to preserve the culture, and if the culture is being lost, then we should bring it back. That's the whole idea.
I
I think
can't
yes.
agree more with you. Can't agree
Yes.
more with you. I don't think we are diverging. What happens is, when we are talking about a serious topic, Bhagavad Gita is embedded in our blood. Okay, we may not always utter it, but anybody who believes in Sanatana, it is in our blood. So there will be certain discussions which should be happening openly, because there will be some opinions which will come. We Indians have a lot of opinion. हम बहुत बातें करते हैं. So it is important to talk, because otherwise things will not be clarified. So अभी क्योंकि इन्होंने कहा ना कि नॉर्थ इंडियंस का भी है, तो पॉसिबली उनको लगा था कि आई वाज निगेटिंग द नॉर्थ इंडियन
No, no,
इन्फ्लुएंस.
no.
बाय
नहीं
द वे,
नहीं,
मेरा कर्म
मैं
क्षेत्र नॉर्थ
मैं
इंडिया ही
गलत
रहा था. मैं दिल्ली और यूपी से काम शुरू किया है मैंने. आई वर्कड इन 7 years. तो
हाँ,
मेरी भाषा भी उतनी परिष्कृत है. तो आई कंप्लीटली adhere, imbibe your thoughts.
Yeah, everybody who has, done, we should be definitely thankful and grateful to those people. And now what we can do at this point in time is, what we can do to preserve our ancient culture. Not just, see, cultural aspect is one, and the most uh, valuable thing that our Sanatan Dharma tells about, the fundamental knowledge uh, of Bhagavad Gita, that, what is the purpose of life. Like, there are many aspects in the Vedic spectrum also. Why it's a wide spectrum, how to live peacefully, how to live uh, peacefully in the world happily, and at the same time how to achieve the highest goal of life, which is to get out of this circle of birth, death, old age, and disease. So that's the most valuable, most fundamental aspect of the Sanatan. And what we should do is we should preserve that, and take it to the next generation. So here, people find sometimes it's hard to accept certain Vedic truths, but we do that easily for the modern science and modern mathematics. Axioms. These are called axioms, which we don't really question anything. We accept it, and when we apply, we see things working. For example, this, square root of -1. It's a imaginary unit, and it's an axiom that, yeah, this is something that must be there in order to fulfill many of the calculation. We don't question how it is existing. It is not, you cannot find it on the scale of, the real numbers, which is the spectrum of all the numbers that you can have, but you cannot still pinpoint -1, square root of -1, but it is there. So these are like all axioms, like the base foundational axioms, for which we don't have any proofs, but we see them uh, practical applications. So similarly, there are Vedic axioms also, which might be hard to understand and pinpoint, but when you apply those principles, you see them working. So the Vedic knowledge, when we say that, should be received in parampara or sampradaya, so there are four bona fide sampradayas that you should hear the absolute knowledge from. Though, because nowadays there is a lot of cheating going on, so we have to be careful when we preserve our culture, when we preserve our knowledge. It has to be bona fide. It should not be concocted speculations. So the four bona fide sampradayas, the first sampradaya is called Sri Sampradaya, which all these four sampradayas originate from the Lord himself. And the Lord instructed uh, Lakshmi ji, and then the sampradaya continued. The second one is called Brahma Sampradaya. Third is called Rudra Sampradaya, and fourth is called Kumar Sampradaya. So these personalities who you see here are the pioneers of these, the beginners of these sampradayas. And Sri Sampradaya is Lakshmi Devi, Brahma Sampradaya is Brahmaji, Rudra Sampradaya is Lord Shiva, and Kumar Sampradaya is the four Kumaras. Sanatan, the sons of Brahma, basically. So Sri Sampradaya, there have been prominent Acharya who was Ramanujacharya. In Brahma Sampradaya, we see Madhvacharya was the prominent Acharya in this Sampradaya. There have been many others, but these are very popular, very well known, who preserved the Vedic knowledge and explained it to the masses. Then in Rudra Sampradaya, Vishnu Swami is one of the prominent Acharya. And in Kumar Sampradaya, Nimbarka Swami is the prominent Acharya. And we see like various branches of these Sampradayas all over India, from whom you can receive authentic knowledge about the absolute truth. You will find a lot of other people educating, but they are not bona fide. If they are, if you can trace their history back to these sampradayas, if their education is coming from one of these sampradayas, then you can, firmly believe that, this is the authentic knowledge that I'm getting. But otherwise, it becomes questionable. It becomes a red flag. In Srimad Bhagavatam, it is described that, Lord transmitted this knowledge to Brahmaji. The Vedic knowledge was revealed by the Supreme Person within the heart of the first created being Brahma. Tene Brahma Hridaya Ya Adi Kavye. So the Vedic knowledge was given to Lord Brahma, and then he divided into the four Vedas and the whole Vedic uh, division of knowledge. This Vedic wisdom came down in disciplic succession through the chain of gurus from the beginning of creation. So it's not that somebody, some normal person, human being only came up with these ideas, and anybody can come. Since it was created, this knowledge was created by some human being, so some other human beings can also create it. It's not like that.
Read the words and the instruction given by the predecessors. Krishna instructed Brahma, Brahma instructed Narad, Narad instructed Vyasdev, Vyasdev instructed Madhyacharya. And in this way, then Madhavendra Puri, Ishwar Puri, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then the six Goswamis, then the Srinivasa Acharya, Kaviraj Goswami, Narottam Das Thakur, Vishwanath Chakravarti, Jagannath Das Babaji, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. And then we are doing the same thing. There is no difference. That is the specific procedure of the Krishna consciousness movement.
So it's a very brief history of the Madhva Sampradaya, or the line in which ISKCON is trying to spread the knowledge. It is coming from Brahma Sampradaya, Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya it is called. So some of the prominent acharyas in the Sampradaya were mentioned by Srila Prabhupada. This voice that we heard was Srila Prabhupada's voice, who is the founder acharya of ISKCON. 5,000 years ago, Vyasadeva, a literary incarnation of God, recorded the Vedas in writing for the benefit of people in Kali Yuga. So before that, also the same knowledge was transmitted, but it was the medium of uh, acquiring knowledge was through hearing only. So uh, because they knew what the age is coming forward. So in order to facilitate the less intellectual, less intelligent people, it had to be written. So it was written down by Vyasadeva 5,000 years ago.
Prabhuji, Prabhuji, I have a question. So,
Yeah.
so Vyasadeva wrote this after Krishna was gone, right? After Krishna disappeared
Yes.
from the world, then he wrote.
Actually, no, it's not exactly like that. So some of the scriptures he has already started writing, and
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
particularly Srimad Bhagavatam was written later on. But and in fact, Mahabharata was written by him later on. But the four divisions, the four fundamental Vedas that we see, Rig Ved, Yajur Ved, Sam Ved, and Atharva Ved, and all, and Upanishads and all, they were there. In fact, those people were practicing, and the knowledge was there. Some of it was in written form, some of it was not in written form, but he made sure that it is available to everybody in written form.
So basically, Gita and Bhagavatam was written later. The Vedas were there before.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji.
And it's not that this knowledge was not there. The knowledge was still there before also. In the past times, you can say that, okay, it was written after and all. So this is the wider spectrum of what the uh, Vedic spectrum of knowledge can be classified as. Lot of things are there. Uh, it can be broadly, it is categorized as Shruti and Smriti, and then within Shruti there is Ved, Upaved, Vedangas, and then Smriti have Tantra, Pancharatra, Puranas, Itihasas, Shaddarshan, everything. So it's a very high level classification, not a very fine tuned one, but further these can be divided into many other uh, divisions. Uh, for example, like Dharma Shastras, like Manu Samhita and all, how to govern and what are the rules and regulation of living is given here. And sometimes we see that people take some portion of these Vedas and criticize that uh, this is a mistake in the Vedas. It's because of lack of understanding the right essence and right mood of those knowledge. But there is nothing wrong with the knowledge as such. They are not they are not bound by time, place, and circumstances. With time, place, and circumstances, their application might be different, but the principal knowledge will not change. So the teachings that we are trying to learn here, we are just scratching the surface, right? It is coming in the lineage of Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, and we'll go more into detail of what the actual philosophy that we discuss. But the today's topic was primarily that it we from our own efforts, uh, we cannot come to the right conclusion. We need external help, and that help is coming from the Vedas. So the question that we started with: how can these six blind people know about elephant? You know, the answer is a wise man can tell them about an elephant, how it looks like, how it walks, how what it can do, what it cannot do. So the six blind men, they also got the truth, but it was in part. But the full truth can be given by somebody who has the full knowledge. Any questions? We have You might have heard this word, right? Kuwe ka mendak. You know what does that mean? Kuwe ka mendak. So the concept of that kuwe ka mendak is ke there are these frogs which are there in the well. ठीक है. Now they know about the well only. उनको अगर पूछा जाए कि अगर कोई एक दूसरा मेंढक ओशन से वहां आ जाए वेल के अंदर, और वो आके उनको अगर बताए कि आई हैव सीन अ वाटर बॉडी मच बिगर देन दिस, तो दे विल द frog in the well, what can it imagine? It will ask questions like, okay, so is it twice this well? वो बोलेगा, जो ओशन से है, वो बोलेगा नहीं, बहुत बड़ा है वो. अच्छा, इसे 3 टाइम्स, अगर मान लो ऐसे ऐसे 2-3 वेल हो, उतना होगा, वो इतना डीप होगा जितना ये वेल है. लेकिन उसका जो स्पेक्ट्रम है, उसका जो स्कोप है, ही कैनॉट इमेजिन व्हाट एन ओशन इज. तो he has to hear properly, and then he has to be convinced that okay, there is a vast water body that you cannot even imagine in terms of the terminology and the things that you have seen around. You cannot even comprehend it, but it is truth that there is an ocean which is much vaster than the well. लेकिन हम लोग we try to understand God with our limited senses, what we can perceive. Okay, वो इंसान रहे होंगे, वो एक अच्छा इंसान रहे होंगे, क्योंकि हम लोग इंसान से ऊपर सोच ही नहीं सकते. या अगर मान लो हम कोई ऐसा, दैट्स व्हाई पीपल गेट सो मच एनामर्ड बाय मैजिशियन, मैजिक, राइट? या किसी के पास कोई सिद्धि है, उससे बहुत ज्यादा एनामर्ड हो जाते हैं कि ओ समबडी, समथिंग दैट वी हैव नॉट सीन एंड दैट कैन बी डन, राइट? किसी ने अगर ऐसा किया तो उनको ऐसा लगता है कि ये तो पता नहीं क्या ही है. But that is still limited within our scope of understanding, that what we have seen, we try to fit into everything into what we can see and perceive and what we can understand. But the Vedas can give knowledge about God who is much beyond than what we can see, perceive, imagine. So this is the summary of what we discussed today. And why we are emphasizing this thing is because in the subsequent classes also we learn a lot of things which will be based mostly on what we learn from Vedas. It's not कि हाँ they are representing some institution, और जो उन्होंने जो they have just concocted something and then they are just describing. No, it is all coming from authorized scriptures. And then we'll also see कि even from the authorized scriptures, we can try to learn on our own, but that also doesn't work. It's like, जैसे अगर मान लो जैसे पोएटिक लैंग्वेज होता है, राइट? कोई पोएम होता है, तो वो पोएटिक लैंग्वेज में कभी कभी क्या होता है कि द लैंग्वेज लिटरली विल से समथिंग, बट the message that is being tried to conveyed might be slightly different. And who can tell that what is the message that I am trying to convey? The poet himself. And the close associates of that poet can understand the mood of the poet, and he can know, okay, what does he really mean by this poem. Other people who can still read the poem can come to different conclusions. So that's why when we hear any knowledge, we emphasize a lot that it has to come in the one of right sampradaya. It has to be coming from there. Otherwise, you can say that okay, now the Vedas are there available, I can go and read on my own, and I'll get to know everything. It doesn't work like that. Anything that you got to know today is with today's discussion that you didn't know before, or anything new that you found, if you want to share quickly, like now we have already on time.
I most like the concept. I mean, the last story, actually, the frog story. जहाँ आपने बताया ना कि जैसे एक बंदा जो देखा ही एक कुएं को है, वो समझ ही नहीं सकता कि दुनिया क्या है बाहर। तो वो कितना भी कोशिश कर ले उसको इमेजिन करने का बड़ा बड़ा बड़ा, लेकिन वो एक समुंदर जैसा इमेजिन करना उसके लिए पॉसिबल है ही नहीं। एंड सेम थिंग विद वेदास। सो हम अपने अपना एक थ्योरी लेके आ जाते हैं, थोड़ा थोड़ा छोटा मोटा, लेकिन हमारी समझ उस लेवल की है ही नहीं कि हम उसको भी समझ सकते हैं। तो ये मेरे को कंप्लीटली मतलब ये एक एक्सेप्टेंस है हुआ कि हो सकता है कि वी डोंट इमेजिन, मेरा वो लेवल ही नहीं है वो इमेजिन करने का, and still we try to describe Vedas in our own literature or words, which is wrong and which is impossible.
Yeah, at the same time, we have to, uh, we can have firm faith in the Vedas also, and we can accept our shortcomings that, okay, I might not be able to comprehend it, but there is there is something in it which is which is meaningful, and which should be applied in the right way to get the most benefit out of it.
Hmm.
On this frog story, I believe, if I'm not wrong, this was also mentioned by Swami Vivekananda when he spoke in the World Religion Conference in US, where he had to define, differentiate Sanatan Dharma over other religions. If I'm not wrong, he mentioned about, related to something related to this frog and well in the sea.
Yeah, you see, people can quote this example in various ways in the material circles also. अगर कोई छोटी कंपनी है उसमें कोई बड़ा कंपनी वाला आके अगर मान लो कुछ बताएगा हाउ बिगर कंपनी वर्क्स, दे कैन आल्सो यूज दिस एग्जांपल. वी आर आल्सो यूजिंग दिस एग्जांपल फॉर वेयर एवर इट फिट्स आवर needs. The point is that sometimes we are so restricted to our understanding of where, based on our conditioning, and we try to retrofit everything within that spectrum. Okay, अच्छा बड़ा कंपनी को काम करने के लिए अभी मेरे पास जैसे एक अकाउंटेंट है तो दो अकाउंटेंट रखने से हो जाएगा, तीन अकाउंटेंट रखने से हो जाएगा. व्हाई डू आई नीड अ डिफरेंट डिपार्टमेंट? ह्यूमन रिसोर्स का मेरे पास तो कोई डिपार्टमेंट नहीं है. आई इंटरव्यू इट्स माई सेल्फ. आई एम नॉट एक्सपर्टीज इन एनी. I have not gone through a degree in specializing in human resources. Why do I need a person to run a big company? So अपने अपने स्पेक्ट्रम में यू कैन यूज दिस एग्जांपल इन वेरियस वेज. द पॉइंट इज कि हम लोग की कंडीशनिंग एक तरह की हो जाती है, बट वी शुड बी ओपन टू एक्सेप्ट थिंग्स दैट वी कैनॉट रियली कॉम्प्रीहेंड,
Yeah,
and we
very.
should not reject it outright. Okay, this is not possible.
Yeah. So I would, this particular thing I would like to imply on myself also. Look, so, since I moved out of my hometown, I was not exposed to many cultures. Though I was in a town which was a cosmopolitan town, but having traveled across the country for the last 16, 17 years, many people have, certain, perceptions about cultures, culinary tastes, and different states and all. So once we mingle with people, once we get to know people, once we get to work with different people, it is only then once we immerse ourselves in the entire ecosystem, and we have a large canvas to basically get exposed to large canvas. Only then we have a holistic view that how it is. So, for example, there was a time when people had a perception about, South India or whatever. But South Indians are also very different within themselves. And within states, people are different. Within states, the culture varies. Yeah. Very, very nuanced culinary tastes varies within states, cultures, everything varies. Now, and I'm relating this to our larger spectrum because unless we know this, we cannot make a very, rational judgment. That's my view
Yeah.
related,
So when we go deeper into this knowledge, see, it's the whole world is full of variety, right? Uh, and how to live peacefully with that variety. So there is a concept of universal brotherhood, right? But that concept of universal brotherhood can be most practically implemented or understood when there is a concept of universal fatherhood. So the Vedas provide a wide variety of knowledge, but the most valuable knowledge that is provides is about that universal fatherhood, that we are all the children of the same father. And if we are the children of the same father, we should live like brothers. We should live in harmony. So diversity can still be there. All fingers are fingers of my hand only, but they are diverse. They are different shape sizes. But when they come together, they can do wonderful things. So that's where we are heading towards slowly. So there can be cultural differences. We are not highlighting the differences. We are highlighting the similarities and how we can live in harmony with each other, and how to establish that concept of universal fatherhood. So that will and ultimately then we are in this material world, we'll know more about. So Bhagavad Gita talks about 5 topics, and those 5 topics include the topics of knowledge about Ishvara, knowledge about Jiva, knowledge about Prakriti, knowledge about Kala and Karma. So these are the major 5 topics which are discussed in Bhagavad Gita, and we'll touch base upon each of them. So in today's class, we were just trying to emphasize the importance of Vedas and the truth coming from the Vedas. And our primary source of discussion will be Bhagavad Gita. Uh, in today's world, like we see lot of people in WhatsApp messages will keep hearing, okay, the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita this, and that is all. Most of the time, it is bogus. It's not what it said in the Bhagavad Gita, but on the name of Bhagavad Gita, lot of false narrative is being circulated. So we'll try to understand uh, what we learn in the Sampradayas, Bhagavad Gita as it is, how it was presented by Lord Krishna to Arjuna, what knowledge was given, that we'll dive deep into. And that's the essence of all the Vedas.
Yeah. So for
So
me, today's my one key takeaway is like if we want to find out the truth, right? Fact can be seeked. It's not something we should speculate. It's not something we should just randomly go and ask anyone. We should look for the right source, because every fact, everything will have some sources, and we should look for the right sources to understand them in actuality, rather than having a perverted form of that fact or any speculated conclusions.
yeah.
Yes, Abhishek Prabhu made a very important and good point. I mean, a lot of examples are also given based on the same thing. Like when you need to go to a doctor, to be able to find out that, he's the right doctor, studied from the right university, has operated so many people, and has been a successful doctor. It is our duty, and we have to make sure that we are going to the right person. If we go anybody to anyone who's in the neighbor and saying that I'm a doctor, you would not really want to go to that person. You don't want to put your life at risk by going to that person. So making sure that the sources are correct is very important.
Uh, for me, what I realized today is like it's not only even important for us to get connected to our Vedic culture, it is very important, and it's the duty of ours to connect our kids also, next generation also, to our Vedic knowledge. If we will not connect, they will not get. So that was my key takeaway.
Uh, yeah. So with that, we come to the end of today's class, and we'll continue next week, and we'll discover more about uh, ourselves. So that will be the topic for the next week. And there is a lot of more excitement coming in the upcoming classes. Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.